On today's episode of The Yips, we have on Connar O'Gorman. Connar has been a professional baseball player in the United States, Japan, Australia, Germany, and more. We also talk about a deadly bird in Australia called the cassowary. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Yips podcast. I'm your host, Caleb. Co-host is Chase, as always, and we're on video now. So hopefully you are watching from Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching from today. And on today, we have our guest, Connar I even asked you before the call. O'Gorman. I wanted to say O'Gorman. I wanted to so bad. But O'Gorman, how are you, Connar?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're really excited to dive into your expertise. One of our favorite episodes was with a connection of yours in Gary McCoy. Is that, I think, what's how you say it? He was an awesome person to have on and talk all about sports. He even ran over his cat's tail in the middle of our episode, so it kind of screamed.
Really eventful. Yep.
Yeah, it was a blast talking to him. So having a connection of his with another baseball professional like yourself, I'm really excited to dive into some of your experiences. Before we do that, always have to ask my favorite co-host, Chase, how are things going in the Rector house?
Well, nothing too much new to report. I mean, by the time this releases, this will be old news, but got round 2 of the tournament, the pool tournament.
Oh, pool you made it?
I've been given a tough seed. All right. It's a double elimination, and I think I'm going to lose both in a row. So, yeah, not feeling great. Not feeling great about it, but hey, I'm going tomorrow. I'm going to play my second game, and I think I took 6th last time, so which isn't great. But coming off a victory in the ping pong tournament,
Yeah.
I'm sitting right where I'm not too dominant, right? I'm just in the middle.
Yeah, trying to hustle. Well, Connar, to update you, Chase plays in all of these different indoor sporting challenges at his work, and he claims, we don't really actually have any proof of this, but he claims to have done well in previous events. So,
yeah, I won the ping pong tournament we just had. Yep. Darts, not so much. I had a little bit of a hard time. I got eliminated pretty quick. So,
yeah. The triple 20 gotcha.
So there's the great point. I would go for it and I'd practice it, but then if you know a dartboard, you miss a 20. There's a lot of low numbers right next to it. So yeah. I get close, but man, I would really hit those 1s and 5s, and I mean it was brutal. So I don't know if that's a strategy. The person I lost to just was going for the center. And they just get lucky and get a 17 here, 15, get a bullseye every once in a while. So
sounds like skill.
No. Well, okay. It was probably a skill, but I like to say luck because it makes me feel better. So,
well, we can dive into that on another episode, talking about Chase's Yips moments. But we can dive over into Connar's experience here. So, Connar, your background is I alluded to it before with baseball, and you've been privileged enough to play for the national New Zealand baseball team. Is that right?
Yeah. So the New Zealand Diamondbacks is what we call our national team, and yeah, my background's in baseball. I'm over currently with Baseball New Zealand working for them, but I actually did a lot of my childhood in Australia and growing up through the Australian baseball system, and even worked there in a few different states there too. So, but yeah, privileged enough to play for the New Zealand Diamondbacks in a few different events, and some of the most proudest things I've ever done in my life was representing New Zealand and playing for my home country where I was born, and my parents have also grew up and played for New Zealand too in their sports.
Yeah, and I'm sure just like in America, it's every young man's dream to grow up and be professional in whatever sport they elect. So was it always a dream to play for the national baseball team, the Diamondbacks?
Diamondbacks, yeah. So,
okay.
You know what's funny? Like baseball for me growing up, I was a bit of a late starter. So I played a bunch of other sports, everything under the sun, and baseball was about 13 or 14 when I kind of started my baseball journey. And at that stage, there was no New Zealand Open team and stuff like that. But I grew up idolizing the All Blacks like every Kiwi does, and seeing them be successful on the world stage and doing the haka and all of that sort of stuff. So It was more seeing the pride and the joy that they had playing for New Zealand that kind of filtered into, the first team I played for was the under-21s team that we went to a World Cup in Taiwan, and that was kind of the first team that New Zealand sent away on an international stage. So that was really cool to be a part of that and kind of start the process of representing New Zealand in baseball.
Yeah, and really quick, what is or was the position that you play?
So I started off as a catcher. So I caught. I was a catcher most of my college career, and then sort of through my professional career, I got a bit old and broken and not as moving so good. So I moved into a more utility second base, first base sort of thing.
So I've always been interested because when I've watched baseball, it feels like, I got bad knees already, but it feels like that just kills. A whole game, you're just up and down, and up and down, and up and down. Is there anything you can do to mitigate that? Does the padding and the equipment help with that? Or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I woke up this morning. I'll tell you my story. I woke up this morning, my back was just killing me. It's more my back for me. And you get the old, get out of bed, do the old man stretch and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, they call the catcher's gear the tools of ignorance. So, there's it doesn't pad too much when you get a foul ball into you and things like that. But there's not much you can do. Take care of your body and hopefully that you put yourself in a good spot to stay healthy. Really.
So did you start as a catcher then? From when you were starting, you said 13, 14 is when you really started getting into it. Did you start as a catcher?
I started on the infield, and then I kind of like every catcher's story. No one else wants to do it, and then
that's what I was asking. Yeah, it just didn't seem like it.
Look, it's fun, but it's also there's tough days back there. So basically, that's what happened. Was nobody else wanted to put the gear on, and I was reasonably okay at it, and kind of stuck with me from there.
All right. We got to ask, what's the worst pain? Like, have you just been hit in the inner thigh, or it could be the manhood? We don't want to divulge too much, but were you down and out ever getting hit by a ball?
You know what the worst one was? Is I got one off the side of my neck, and it kind of scraped the side of my neck, and it was horrible. But yeah, the thigh, and then the man parts, they don't tickle either. Yeah. They leave a mark, those ones.
And I'm assuming that ball was going upper 80s, lower 90s coming at you.
Oh, yeah, it was quick and just couldn't get there and but I had this massive bruise on my neck and it looked like I had a hickey and it was all bad from there.
I'm sure we'll go with that story, right? More than the baseball. You missed and you got to it too quick. That's crazy, man. Okay, so how do you go from, I guess maybe walk me through the process. You start baseball, you get good at it. How do you then get to the national team?
Yeah, so you kind of just go through the pathway system, and where I'm working now is New Zealand Pathways. So now it's a bit more set up than it used to be. But there was the old CEO based in New Zealand, Ryan Flynn, who's an American guy from New York, and he's a great talker and salesman and all that sort of stuff. He was on the hunt for a bunch of Kiwis and guys who live in New Zealand, guys who live in the States, anyone that had a New Zealand passport, he was somehow found through some sort of contact he had. Anyway, and that's kind of how I ended up on the New Zealand team. But now it's a little different. Now we have pathways set up, and so we have a 15s, an 18s, a 23s, and a men's team going up the pathway there. And it's pretty simple. It's just, you play club baseball, you go into your regional baseball, and then from there we kind of select our wider New Zealand squads at each of those levels. And then we, go through that sort of process, which is normally about a 12-month process. They go through development and training and all that sort of stuff, and then they roll into a competition or an event that we're going to. Mainly it's a World Cup qualifier.
And that happens for every age, like the U13s and U21s and all that?
Yeah. So we go on 2-year cycles. We just went to Australia to compete for the under 18 Oceania berth to the World Cup. So they'll wait 2 more years for the next under 18s, but it's 18s and 12s are normally in the same year, and 23s and 15s are in the same year. And then for the men's side of it, that's more you kind of set up your own series and things like that and do all that sort of stuff. We were a part of the WBC, so we spent 12 years in that, and they do 4-year cycles, so every cycle we're going through the qualifying events. This year we've been not invited due to some other reasons and things like that. But hopefully we can get back there and get our young Kiwis back playing on that sort of stage. It'll be really cool.
So how big is the sport in New Zealand? Because when we talked to Gary, it was much bigger in Australia than Chase and I expected. So how about New Zealand? Is it a pretty good showing to these games?
No, we're tiny. So we have about 18 to 2,000 total members. So just like in Gary's case, he might have spoke to you guys about the club sort of model. So we don't run our sports out of schools. We have more club-based competitions. So we've only got about 2,000 members roughly around the country. So we're tiny compared to Aussie. Aussie's got, upwards of 30, 35 plus thousand sort of thing. So we're fighting an uphill battle some days when we go play them, but we're getting there.
Well, that's how it all starts, right? You got to start from a certain place and build it out. It sounds like you're already talking about the pathway to get there is already better than it was when you started, which wasn't massively long ago. So, moving to your role, you're playing actively right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So it's a bit of a funny one. So I'm still, I guess, technically on the men's team, but yeah, I'm working as the pathways manager and working through all of that sort of stuff and sports management, admin, that side of it. We are definitely growing. Like we're getting there for sure. We baseball's only 30 years old in New Zealand. 89 was the first year of organised baseball and stuff like that. So, we're trying to compete and grow with these other countries that have hundreds of years experience in baseball and worked out all the kinks that come with that. And we're kind of in our infancy stage and growing and stuff like that. So, which is cool.
That's cool. It sounds like that's a pretty good number then for only that, short period of time that you've got clubs set up, you've got organizations set up to find those individuals and develop them. Because that's when it comes down to it, that's what it takes, right? It takes the early development to be able to improve the end product. And that also brings the interest. That brings the interest of the, kids being able to jump into a sport that it's not available. Well, there's nothing you're going to do. So, how did you, were you wanting to get into the administrative side of things and help it grow, or did that just kind of an opportunity came up and you decided to jump on it?
Yeah, I think it kind of naturally happened. So as I was kind of winding down my playing days and going overseas and playing in the ABL and doing all that sort of stuff, I was coaching. I was coaching to earn a bit of money on the side. I was doing all that sort of stuff. I was always really, really interested in how the body moved and how to get stronger and all of that. So after I first started playing, I actually went into being a personal trainer, and I hated that, honestly. It was so boring, and you were just like a counselor at the squat rack for most of your sessions, and the gen pop, sort of the general population. It's more about helping them through their week more than making them healthier and stronger. So, as you can
imagine,
work
out. Give me the motivation.
Yeah. Oh, you hear some wild stories about what the kids are doing this week and the wife and what happened at work, and it's like,
it's like you have me confused.
Yeah. So from there, I got bored with that, and I went into being a strength and conditioning coach. So that led me into doing a bit more organized baseball coaching, where I had a S&C business along with a private coaching business, and doing a lot more stuff with state and regional on the Gold Coast in Australia. So I was living in there at the time. That's where I grew up in Queensland, and working with Baseball Queensland and Gold Coast baseball coaching and stuff like that. Volunteer and then also running my S&C business, where I was working at a school and running the sports excellence S&C with all the sports that they have there. And then a job in Canberra came up for their pathways manager, which is a bit of a dual role where it's kind of admin, but also a lot of on-field coaching. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with that sort of thing. And that's kind of how I got into sports administration. It was just, I don't know, in a 3-4 year period, it kind of just happened. It's nothing I thought I would ever be in. I always thought, you look at the guys in the front office as a player and stuff like that. Like, oh, that looks boring, but there's a lot more to it that I quite enjoy, and it's really nice to be back here in New Zealand and trying to set up some pathways and play development for kids where I didn't have that, or kids that I played with in our Diamondbacks teams, they never had that experience growing up here in New Zealand, where I was pretty fortunate to have that growing up in Australia.
So it seems like you've worked with a lot of kids in this whole process, like the younger age. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've worked with pretty much all the way from 11-year-olds all the way up to 30-year-olds now. Guys that
Oh
are
wow.
my age, and I'm working with guys on the men's team and guys that are going to college, and guys on our 23s team. And a lot of my role now is also doing some coach education, getting our national coaches better developed, whether that's with communication styles, whether that's with, how to listen and how to communicate. And it's quite funny. I laughed at being, listening to those Gen Pop guys and at Anytime Fitness. But now I'm trying to teach our national coaches how to be
Yeah.
sports psychs as well. So which is quite funny. But yeah, and then also working with our sort of top 5-10% on field, and then running the national programs and stuff like that too. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but
Yeah.
it's cool. I really, really enjoy it. And the best part about coming here to New Zealand is I've had a chance to build something from scratch. So a lot of things have not come out the way I wanted them to come out, but that's also the learning process and doing this sort of stuff. So it's really cool to see it grow. And I've only been here 2 years, so we'll see where we end up.
That's awesome. And uh, is there a specific age that you prefer? Because I see benefits like pros and cons to all of them. Because if they're young, they're moldable, they're still learning the sport. They probably have that fire to get good. But then you could also look at younger 20s. They're kind of in their prime, trying to really master their craft. And you look at the veterans, up to 30 years old, where they've been doing it for a long time. I'm sure that comes with its own challenges. But is there a certain age range that you like to help condition and train the best?
Yeah, I think because I like those 15, 16, 17-year-olds, those sort of guys coming towards the end of their high school, and that are thinking of moving off into college in the States, or doing something with their career, because that's kind of why I got into the coaching side, and especially the strength and conditioning side of my career, was to really help guys go off into college, because I felt when I got to college I wasn't prepared enough physically to be successful when I dropped in there. So that's why I started coaching, and that's still kind of my passionate area. Those guys, they've got the skill to do a lot of stuff on the field, but also they're still very moldable, and you can make a lot of changes rapidly, whether that's mental, whether that's physically, whether that's spiritually with them, and how they all intertwine with each other and move forward from there. So that 15, 16, 17 years where they're very driven and motivated to be successful and go off and have a good career.
Yeah. Now, I got to ask, I've watched this movie. It's been a couple years, but it was called Next Goal Wins. Have you heard of that movie?
Yeah, is that the American Samoan movie where that
Yeah.
coach kind of drops into the island and he has no idea what's going on?
Yeah. He was like a ex head coach, drunk guy, and he
Yeah,
goes and has to figure it out. Is sports life on an island? Wait, sorry. Have you seen that movie?
yeah.
Okay. Is sports life on an island like that pretty similar, where you don't have a whole lot of people to choose from on your team, so you really kind of got to work with what you have? But would you say that's pretty accurate?
There's some days like that for sure, especially down in the clubland where they're picking. They're picking kids up from younger grades and moving them around the age groups and stuff like that. We're lucky to be a bit of a bigger island than American Samoa and a bit more in the first world than what they had to deal with over there. But some days, yeah, especially in a small sport, micro sport like we are, where the Kings are rugby, soccer, cricket, netball. They're our big four over here. And basketball as well is really, really taking off. So we some days we get the runts to the litter in the athletics of the world. So yeah, it's tough some days.
So, with the kids that you're working with, right, that are preparing them to go to college, do you find that most of them, when they're really trying to make, an impact in the sport, do they leave to college to go play elsewhere outside of New Zealand, or is there things set up for them to actually improve and really get better to come back to the national team later? Or do you find that most of them are leaving to go to college and stuff?
So to get a higher level of baseball, you have to go outside of New Zealand when you get to that sort of age. And that's kind of our development plan in a way. It's not necessarily to make them, we're making them prepared to be successful there rather than getting them to that age, giving them baseball and developing them here. It's better to develop them to be successful at 17 or 18 whenever they go up to college to the States, or they go up and play in Australia and try to make an ABL or go to Europe or whatever they end up doing at that sort of period when their junior baseball's done, is to get them successful to be get them ready to be successful overseas. And then the idea is we send them off, they get 4 years of really high quality baseball and some new development and all of that sort of stuff, the positives that go with American college or up into Asia or whatever they end up doing. And then they come back and they either jump back into our men's league, so our club competition for adults, or they're back straight into the Diamond Blacks, or they come back and give back to our community and coach, whether that's at the national, region, or club level. That's the hope. They have a good experience and they they see what has been done for them, and they come back and return that in the long run. So we're building that culture. It's been a tough struggle sometimes, and we've only got about 14 kids up at college at the moment, and they're some are seniors and some are freshmen now. So we'll start to see a bit more of a flow of that coming back to New Zealand, and hopefully they give back.
So what is the biggest challenges then getting them? Is it just the availability, the talent? What's the biggest challenge trying to get them out and get them experience? It's almost like you're sending them off to develop further. You're loaning them out to go to college, and then hopefully they come back. What's the biggest challenge there?
Biggest challenge is it's a really, really different environment down here and down under and stuff like that. We're pretty chill. Like we're quite calm and relaxed and easygoing sort of.
And we're not, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was a shock to me finding that out.
I don't like it either.
Hey, it makes you stronger. It makes you better. Well, not better.
Well, it makes you something. It makes you something.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Getting screamed at by a 35-year-old man because whatever.
Sounds like there's a story right there, Connor. But we'll keep going.
It's getting the talent to be good enough is one for sure. Having the connections and getting them the exposure to be into a college, and then also finding the right fit for the kid. Because it is tough to go over there, and it's got a lot easier with social media and how we connect, and they can FaceTime mum and dad if they want, or if they run out of money, they can get a bank transfer and stuff like that. So that's easy, but they're away from their home life, they're away from their friends, they're away from everything that they know is normal, and then they get sent up to the States, and there's 30 other dudes on a roster that are just as good, if not better than them. It's for a lot of these kids, it's the first time they've been the worst kid on the team or not the best kid on the team, and that's a very, very big adjustment for people. And it's getting easier with social media, and it's getting easier with more guys going and coming back and talking about the experience and stuff like that. So that's the biggest one. It's not actually the physical side. The physical side, the kids are there and they can do this. Like we've got some really, really big, strong, athletic kids here in New Zealand that play sport. New Zealand is quite successful in a lot of sport for a country of 5 million people. So, the athleticism's there. It's about the emotional side and also they miss home and especially if we have a lot of Polynesian and Pacifica kids and generally in their community that's quite family orientated and they get sent to I don't know Montana where it snows and never seen snow in their life and it's you know 25 degrees in the fall and the wind's punching them in the face and they're like what are we doing here? I could be back home sitting on the beach and hanging out. So it's preparing them emotionally and mentally for that side of it is the biggest adjustment.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I got to know, because we asked about your embarrassing moment. You said you got whacked in the neck with the ball.
Yeah.
Now I want to hear the flip side. What was like your proudest moment, either as a player or as a coach, that maybe you were an underdog and you guys came out and showed up, or maybe you had a great run. What's a opposite of the Yip story that you've been able to experience in this profession?
Yeah, so there's probably a few things that come to mind. But I would say the first time I represented New Zealand, that's definitely the first thing that pops in my mind. And we were this team that no one ever knew even played baseball. There's people in our country that don't even know what baseball is. So we're this hodgepodge of 17 to 22-year-olds going to this under 23 World Cup. But saying that, there was, a few guys that were in organised baseball and affiliates for MLB teams and guys in college. And, we had some really, really talented guys that, Ryan put together. And we went out and we played really well. And the first time I heard standing on the line, hearing the national anthem and just seeing there and then rolling into, doing the haka for the first time, that was really cool. Like that was something I don't think I'll ever forget. Because if playing in the ABL, the Australian Baseball League, you only ever hear the Australian national anthem. When I was playing in the States, like you only ever heard the US anthem. When I was in Japan, you only ever heard the Japanese national anthem. So it was the first time I ever heard the New Zealand national anthem on a baseball field. So that was unbelievable to hear. And
surreal,
then,
I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
For sure. And then we went out and we beat some pretty big teams. Like we beat Czech. I think we beat Mexico, and we nearly beat Korea, and we had this amazing run as a team that no one had ever heard of. We were wild card into a World Cup, so that was really cool to be a part of that and the starting of the national programs for Baseball New Zealand. So that was really cool.
Now, it's something that you said there that I want to ask about. Does the haka actually work? Do you think it actually
does it work? What do you mean? Does it
gets in their head and they're like nervous, seeing it face to face? Because I see it on TV and I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's really neat that they do that there. So, I mean, it's a little intimidating, but I feel like being there in person, seeing it, 20 feet away, I'd probably be shaking at the knees a little bit. So, do you feel like it actually works?
Yeah, the haka is interesting, right? So, people not from New Zealand, it's different, right? You've never seen it, especially in baseball. Like, you don't roll out and do a haka for a game sort of thing. But the idea behind it's a challenge. It was done when Maori tribes used to go to war with each other, and they used to challenge each other with haka. Now that's come into modern day, I guess you'd call it modern day war, is now sport, right? Where we challenge each other in sport and stuff like that. So it has that, but most hakas tell a story too. It's a story of your organization, your people, your whatever relates back to you. It's the story of your tribal team or whatever you're doing it for. And there's different hakas for different things, and each sport team has their own sort of version and stuff like that too. So it's actually really, really interesting. And after this, if you guys are interested, like the Maori culture is a super interesting culture to look into, and some really cool perspectives on life. So which is amazing to be part of that. And but yeah, I think I find sometimes it's tough to come down after the haka. So you get this like massive high, and
You're
then you
ready to
have
go.
to bring yourself down. And baseball's not like American football or rugby or
Yeah.
those high contact, high intensity sports. It's like, yes, sweet, I'm all the way up here, and now I've got to play 9 innings and like chill out for a little bit. So the first couple of times you do it, it's coming down from that, and then it's kind of maintaining that energy or that vibe. They call it mana. So maintaining that energy throughout the game, and why we're doing it, and why we are representing New Zealand for it. You do a lot of practice. Like it's something that is, if you're going to do it properly and do it respectfully, coming and representing New Zealand. So, and then we get all the American guys that come in that have a parent that's got a passport, and they get their new Kiwi passport, and they come join the team, and it's quite funny seeing them bond with the team through the haka. That's also another part of it. It brings you together because you spend hours a night practicing it, during training camps, games, and stuff like that. So yeah,
That's beautiful.
It's something different for sure. I mean,
yeah. I didn't even know that they had different hakas for different like occasions and stuff. And what are the words that they're saying? Like, do those change for every event?
Yep. So it goes back to the story that's being told. It's in that, so it's like we're actually going through a process now of redoing our haka for Baseball New Zealand. Connecting with the right people and the people that are experts in that sort of field, I would say. And then they they gift us a haka. So it's a gift from Pucks, the guy who's writing it, and he gets it signed off from his iwi, so his leader and stuff like that. And there's a whole process and protocols that go with it and all that sort of stuff. And the one he's writing for us is all about it's more about the challenge and more about the person, the individual, because baseball is more of a individualized team sport than I would say a team sport, than most team sports. Sorry, so it's along those sort of lines. It's really interesting. Growing up as an Aussie, I was far removed from the cultural side of New Zealand, because we left New Zealand when I was 10, so I was super young, didn't quite get involved in too much of that sort of stuff at that age, and then I grew up in Australia, and all the Kiwis say I sound like an Aussie, and you guys probably don't know the difference, do you?
I mean, it sounds similar. I couldn't tell you. I could immediately point it out, but yeah, it's how different is it really? I mean, this is my ignorance speaking, but like, what are the main like differences? Like Canada, America. Oh, I know they say a boat.
Yeah.
A boat. What is it, Caleb? What's
A boot.
A boot. A boot.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So like, or Surrey. Yeah. So like they have words, just individual words that sound differently, but the overall feeling's the same. Is it similar?
Basically, yeah. So in my mind, the Aussie language is a bit more, or Aussie accent is a bit more squeakier, like harsher sort of thing, where
yeah, squeaky.
Kinda, yeah. And
don't act like you know squeaky. You don't know squeaky.
And then the Kiwi is quite more. It's a bit more posh,
Yeah.
Aussies
totally.
are convicts from England back in the day, and then Kiwis were founded by missionaries. So kind of a bit of
the refined versus the
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Pretty much all of my experience with Australian accents is Bluey, because that's all my kids watch. So that's about all I got.
Yeah, my daughter says, oh geez, what does she say? She says some phrase from Bluey that's not American. I mean, you just don't hear it. No, it's something else. I can't remember what it is, but she said it one time and I just started busting up laughing because I knew exactly where she got it from, and it was so specific. And then she just started saying it everywhere. It was so funny. I can't remember what it is. So, what do you think about the like you alluded to the fact that you spent some time in America, right? With planes. It was a plane that you were in America for.
Yeah. So I was up. I went to college up in New Mexico. So New Mexico Junior College, I went to college. So
can I just say, of all the places in America, you chose one of the worst states.
It's a tough choice.
You mentioned
Montana. You mentioned Montana. That would be tough for different reasons, but sorry to anyone listening from New Mexico, but you know what it is. I mean,
I don't know what your batting average, Connor, is, but for choosing places in the United States, you're batting zero. I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying.
I went from sitting on the beach and it's 80s and stuff like that to jumping into New Mexico fall where it's 45, but it actually feels like 20 because of the wind chill and high plains and desert and there's not an ocean in sight. And I get dropped off in Hobbs, New Mexico. That's basically known for its oil and nothing. And that's about it. And then
no, that's a state. That's a state.
Yeah, that and Breaking Bad. I don't know if you've seen Breaking Bad, but that's all.
Is that New Mexico?
Yeah.
Is that where okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some deserts. There's a lot of deserts in America, but that's probably the worst of them.
Oh, and it just goes for miles too. Like you're just looking at nothing. There's nothing there.
I mean, that's most of Australia too, but
yeah, that's fair.
Well, there's a lot of deadly animals you got to watch out for.
You see a bunch of kangaroos.
Who were we talking about with that last time? We were talking to someone. Who were we talking with? It was the guy that we talked about with the Olympics when he was in Sydney. We're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So is it actually a thing to be scared of I mean, like I've looked at a list. It's like 5 of the top 7 deadliest animals are in Australia, like localized. So is that a thing when you're living in Australia that you're actually focused on, that you actually think about, or is it just kind of a way of life?
Nah, I mean, it's like, I would be I'm more scared of the States. Like, we don't have cats or mountain lions and bears and stuff like that. Like,
that's true.
We got little snakes, and if you...
Yeah, but you got these spiders like the size of my face.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just stay out of the jungle. You'll be fine.
They're just in the jungle? Okay. Well.
There's some funny stories. We in Queensland there's a bird eating spider, so it's named after what it eats.
That's what I'm saying. What the heck is that?
Cool. Is
there any positive?
The craziest one is the cassowary. Have you seen the cassowary? It's basically an emu, but it looks like a velociraptor. Like it's got a big. Oh, Google it. It's got this. It's this bird. It's a flightless bird. That's one of the biggest in
what is
in
it
the world.
called?
It's got a cassowary.
A cassowary?
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
It's got talons. It's a dinosaur that is in the jungle in the rainforest up in Queensland or in Australia.
You said that you're more scared of like the cougars, like the big cats or the bears in America. But then you also said, if you don't want to see the big spiders, just stay away from the jungle. It could be said for the American animals too. Just stay away from the forest and you're good. But
it's more of the kangaroos. Like if you're driving in the outback, so I used to fly back from wherever I was in the world, fly back to the Gold Coast, pick up my car and drive to Adelaide. Now, the Gold Coast is on the middle of the East Coast and Adelaide's in the middle of the southern coast, basically. And surprising to a lot of Americans, Australia is as big as America, basically. The lower 48 is about the same size. So that was about 30 odd hours of driving. And you'd have to drive through the outback. But you would just see all these kangaroos just laying on the side of the road. For our younger listeners, they were sleeping. So they would just be all over. But if you hit them, it's like hitting a deer. So you hit a deer, it's total car or whatever. Kangaroos they're quite big animals. So that's probably more the scary ones. And I was bit by a redback when I was a kid, so I bit on my hand. I reached into a bush to grab a ball and got bit on the hand. And
is that a spider?
What's a redback?
Spider, yeah. Spider's like a little spider. But it was, and I had to go to the hospital. But I had this massive welt on the back. It was disgusting.
Okay, for the people that aren't watching the video, He said it was a little spider, but he still said it was about like 4 to 5
His
inches.
fingers were showing a little bigger than a little spider.
It's like the size of a baseball. That's about the size that he said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's all that sort of stuff. But you get that in the States. There's cottonmouths and rattlesnakes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I guess there's kind of things like that. I don't know. I mean, do you talk about the beach a lot? Like, I feel like you'd see great white sharks there. All Shark Week is at Australia. So
South Africa and Australia,
that's true. South Africa's a big one. You're right.
Yeah. Well, it's quite funny. You don't get too many shark attacks. Like they're always there for sure. Like, but you don't get too many a year, 4 or 5. I think there's only like 10 odd casualties. It does series of deadly attacks.
Well, then we're screwed, Caleb, because just the East Coast has. I looked it up. Like, remember when Caleb and I lived in Florida for a little bit, and the beach that we would go to was the highest shark attack beach in the nation. And I looked it up. It was like 150 a year.
Yeah, that's insane. Florida terrifies me. Like, why?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you've got gators, like there is anacondas.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
What?
Yeah, it's a weird
Hurricanes.
Thing.
Yeah, Florida people,
Yeah, Florida people. There you go.
Connar knows Florida man.
I did look up a cassowary, and it is terrifying. And the caption was, "Why it's the world's most dangerous bird." I didn't look at it, but it looks like it.
Another one.
It's got a funky face. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting animal, that one. They got talons. Like, it's just it's a dinosaur that's still living essentially.
Yeah, not fun. Okay, well, anyways, talking about animals for a while there. So, you went to the States, New Mexico. I think that's where we were going, right? We were talking about New Mexico.
So I did college out there, and then I went off and played indie ball as well for a little bit in Amarillo. So I was in Amarillo, Texas. So I never left Panhandle of Texas, basically. But we were all the way up the Midwest there, so I got to see a bit of the countryside and the Midwest and going all the way from Laredo, Texas, that was, border of Mexico, all the way up to Winnipeg and kind of just up through that Midwest. So that was a trip for a kid from, grew up down this way where you're on a bus and playing 100 plus games a year and having all of those sort of stories, and so which was cool. And then I got to meet some really cool people from there, and so which was great. I enjoyed my time doing that.
So there, and then you also said Japan. Did you live and play in Japan then for a while?
Yep. So I went off and played indie ball in Japan too. So I was there a year and a half, 1.5 seasons sort of thing. And talk about a different experience, like culture shock. 2
very different. Yep. Yeah. Actually 3 if you count where you're coming from to America. New Mexico. We won't even say America. New Mexico to Japan. You have really swung some far cultures.
Oh, I went from not understanding Spanish to not understanding Japanese in like a 2-3 year period. But yeah, Japan, they love baseball over there. They watch it. It's differently. It's a whole culture. It's just completely different. Like Australia, New Zealand, the States, Canada, relatively the same, right? Like you go there and everything's very similar, maybe little differences here and there. But then you go over to Asia, and it's just a completely different story. They don't speak English. It's different. It's they're very different sort of culture, respectfully, and how they, the hierarchy of how they're set up, and also how the fans interact with you. We had a band, like a musical instrument band, that traveled around with us, and it was led by just spectators, a dude in white gloves just sitting in the stands, conducting these band, and everyone had their own little tune and stuff like that. So it was really cool to be involved in that side of it, and being a funny sounding redhead, they found me quite interesting.
I'm sure they loved it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Jason was all about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny sounding redhead. Come on. I got a cold right now, and come on. No.
So we had the two. My roommate was an African American guy from North Carolina, and he was 6'4" and just ripped up, and he was one of the pitchers, and there's me, who's 5'10", redhead guys standing next to each other outside a stadium, shaking hands with Japanese fans, and no one's understanding each other, so just a lot of head shaking and bowing and thanks for your gift sort of thing. But we were the talk of the town, us two, being polar opposites the way we were.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite place that you've either visited when you were playing a game or where you lived? Like what stays above that all? And you could say like where you grew up, Queensland or wherever,
Yeah,
Gold Coast.
no, like that place is cool. Like if you ever get a chance, it's like Florida but without the Floridians. So
Well, it's got the cassowaries though. So I mean,
Yeah, go.
trade alligators for those. So
I actually got to play a season out in Germany too. So Germany is probably one of my favourite places I've played. And Regensburg was the town I used to live in. It was in Bavaria. There, beautiful, beautiful town. It was set in a old Roman fortress, and the walls around the town were like that on the river, and they had this massive Greek temple. It was just an amazing little town in Bavaria. But that was a cool spot. And then I actually really like Taiwan. I've been up to Taiwan a few times with different baseball trips and teams and stuff like that. So Taiwan or Chinese Taipei is a really, really cool place. So the Germany or Taipei there is it's kind of my top two, I would say.
Wow. You are a world traveler, Connar. You got a lot of stamps on your passport, it sounds like.
yeah, I've been pretty lucky. So that's probably the best part about the gig is, I've got to see a bunch of different parts of the world, experience a bunch of different people, and just explore and learn and do all that sort of stuff. So that's the best part about being with Baseball New Zealand is we're a national body, so I get to tag along with the teams on the trips and stuff like that, so which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm curious on the future of the sport. Hopefully it continues to grow and get the marketing that it deserves. But what are your goals? Like, do you think any of the teams that you work with are able to like win that championship and really take it to the next level?
Yeah, look, our first hurdle is really we have to win our region to go to a World Cup. So the way that it works for baseball is each country has its own region. So we're Oceania. Baseball in Australia is quite good, and they're really, really good at baseball. So that's our first hurdle, is beating them in a World Cup qualifier, and then moving forward onto the World Cup and that sort of stuff. But I think the future is really just localized development. We really need to focus on the next, or actually continuing for the rest of the time baseball's here, is just focusing on developing these kids to be successful at the level. And to be honest, I say this to our guys all the time here in New Zealand, is winning and losing as a 15-year-old doesn't actually matter. The only thing we care about winning and losing is when it's at the men's. So our men's national team, our Diamondbacks team, at the top of our pyramid, they're expected to win. All the teams below that, it's all about developing, getting better, creating continual development and growth. So when they get to that team at 23 to 30, and players have had a college career or they're in pro ball or whatever, and whatever they're doing with their baseball, we're expected to win at that sort of level. That's when those expectations come in. Winning and losing as 14, 15-year-old is a byproduct of a good system, and we're trying to build a good system here.
Okay. So in your opinion, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit, but I'm curious what you would think. In your opinion, from where you guys have been when you entered the development program with New Zealand to where it is now, where you're working, what do you think are the next steps that have to take place in order to grow the game proportionally to the country and get the involvement and the success where it needs to be?
That's a good question. I'll tell you one thing I'm really excited about this year is we're about to roll out regional hubs or player development hubs in all of our major cities. So that's what that's going to be, is like Auckland, Wellington, Nelson, Christchurch, kind of the cities that we have our big baseball populations and things like that, rolling those out so we can get more contact points with our players in those regions. Auckland, yes, is our biggest region, and most of our players come from Auckland, but we need to make the players outside of Auckland as good, if not better, than the guys up here in Auckland. So creating more development and more development contact points outside of Auckland and in Auckland at the same time is really going to help us. And that's going to be the start of something we've never done here in New Zealand this year. I think I've only been here 2 years, so it's really been a rebuild. I was chatting with boss the other day about, this is really year zero of what I imagined rolling out, because it's taken me 2 years to recreate the system and have the policies and have the, all of the backhouse stuff that you need to have to be successful in place for it to there, and kind of change out the coaches that weren't in it for the right reasons, in it for the kids and in it for, developing and just being a good person around our young players, and kind of refreshing what the system needs to look like. And this is year zero of the rebuild, essentially. So I'm excited for the future. I really am. I think we've got, like I said before, we've got all these amazing athletes. They just need to be fine-tuned into producing outcomes and executing on a baseball field. So we've got a long way to go. And I think, in the next 3 or 4 years, we can really start pushing Australia for World Cup spots, and then we can, start doing that sort of stuff. And while we also, have stuff for our men's team, we're just in the process of playing a tour up into Asia to play some of their teams, or particularly One Nation. That's going to be really good for our men's team, and trying to just having more activity each year for all of our teams, whether that's going to Australia and playing state teams, whether that's having a development team or a development tour or whatever sort of thing. So just creating more outcomes, more development opportunities and experiences for our kids is really important, as well as our adults and college guys, keeping them engaged.
Love it. And yeah, I can tell you that you've made 2 Kiwi fans out of Chase and I. So we are in full support of the development there and in taking it to that next level. I wish I could end on that, but I've been committed to asking this final question after meeting us and hearing about all of his accomplishes. My final question is, do you think you could strike out Chase?
A fellow redhead over there. I've heard he's pretty good with ping pong paddles, so
that's right.
Hand-eye coordination there. But maybe he's got me. I don't know.
You think he can get a base hit on you?
Listen, he was a catcher. He was on the receiving end, so
there's still levels above you and me in our baseball skills.
I'm just some old washed-up guy who's now doing stuff. He's the athlete in the room with
that's right.
dual sport athlete, multi-sport athlete.
You hear that? Yeah. I'm the athlete in the room. Hear that? How do I become on a national team? Can I change my nationality?
You're washed up, dude. No.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's been really awesome having you on, Connar, and getting to know not only you, but your experiences and your passion for the sport. It really shines through. So we appreciate you coming on. To our listeners, don't forget to follow us and review us. We're on every social platform. Remember to never stop loving sports, and catch us next time on The Yips.